We can start recording, I guess, yeah. Hare Krishna, good evening. So this is our weekly Bhagavad Gita class and discussion, gathering, experience. Yes. So what's happening here's so I guess preparing for this class was kind of interesting for me. I just went traveling about a week and a half or so ago to see my mother and sister. They live about 3.5 hours down south of here. What I had the tendency in my life is to kind of lose like myself, and just not really growing up, not really feeling like I shared myself authentically much with my mother or my sister. So, you know, I that was my intention going down there, was to share more openly and authentically, like what I'm thinking and feeling, and maybe even share something that I think might be supportive for them. My mother is 81, and she's been having a lot of health problems. She's kind of in a dwindling kind of stage with her health. She's lost a lot of weight, is dealing with a lot of her mind failing in different ways, or maybe kind of not failing, but kind of going astray a little bit. She's having a lot of just paranoia thoughts and a lot of anxiety, but there's a lot of real stuff coming up for her as well, regarding facing her mortality, facing leaving her body, and facing that reality in a very tangible, real way. She's used to be very active 5 months ago, and now she's in a wheelchair and in bed, and this is kind of where her journey has kind of taken her. And then my sister recently started radiation and chemo about 2 months ago. So she's been going through her own experience down there as well. And then addition to that, separated from her partner of about 10 years or something. I can't remember exactly how long they were married, something like that. So yeah, so there's a lot of changes down there, and I wanted to kind of bring my experience with Krishna Consciousness down there with me, and then hopefully support them in any way that I possibly could during that time and their experience down there. So it's kind of interesting because I had, you know, 2 different main topics that kind of came up for me when I was preparing for this class. One was connecting with my sister and really taking a deep look at like authority, and what we have like subjected ourselves to in our lives, and maybe, you know, trying out new authorities over the years, and seeing how that works for us, maybe getting in touch with something internally, you know, more of voices internally, or getting in touch with like who I really am underneath this, you know, body that I'm occupying. So that was really a special experience that I had with my sister. So I guess I wanted to begin the class with a discussion around Bhagavad Gita, specifically going into like spiritual authority. So I guess I wanted to start by taking a moment to maybe ask one of you to kind of maybe close your eyes and connect to like authority. What does that really mean for you, and what authority you've been living your life by? What authority have you been subjecting yourself to, whether it's society, government, parents, scientific community, any spiritual practice that you might have, any spiritual books or gurus you may have like made contact with, and just kind of be with that experience. And that was something that I just want to take a moment for that. If everybody could just kind of connect with that for a minute. So wherever any of you have kind of went with that, just briefly, you could revisit that in the future. But wherever you went, just kind of connect with that, because I was thinking about in my life, like connecting to like, who can I trust in my life? What can I trust? I grew up in a Christian church, and I was presented with I guess it was a new international version of the Bible, and, Jesus's teachings, just kind of going through my own experience. So like, okay, I trust my parents, they've been raising me since I was a child, and they were loving to me and 100% committed to raise me and take care of me and facilitate my upbringing. So I feel like I had trust there with my parents, and that they were practicing this. Well, my dad was originally Catholic, and my mom actually initiated my dad to take us to church, because she wanted our family to be part of a church family. And so both my parents gave their life at that point to practicing Christianity. And, the time that I spent there, I got a lot of value. I from being a part of the church family that we belong to. I had a lot of doubts, though, that like, is this really what Jesus said? Is this really what Jesus did? These are individuals that had, were basically writing their personal testimony, giving accounts of what Jesus did and what Jesus said. And then also like kind of feeling skeptical, in general of like, how, I don't know, religion can, exploit, people, there's a lot of kind of using, using religion or spirituality to, exploit people. So I had some like, just feeling like, can I really trust this? And feeling like I'm having a hard time trusting this. How do I just like do that? How do I just believe? How do I just take this as face value, or just like accept this as like the truth of, and how do I just give my life to this paradigm that I'm being presented to? So throughout the course of my life, I've kind of been in that question with different practices, and I've met some individuals that there's something special about them, whatever they were practicing or religion, and that they're having a real terrible experience, where like it seemed like for the most part, most other people are just kind of blindly following the practice, and that might work for them, but it never seemed to like attract me at all. I was always individuals that had some like, it just seemed to experience, whether they were talking directly to Jesus through prayer or reading the Bible, or coming into contact with this Krishna Consciousness practice, individuals communicating with their spiritual master, their guru, or even getting, messages or Krishna which Krishna connecting to them intimately and personally. So that's attractive to me, and it seems like, okay, well, how do I connect to that? How do I really kind of connect to that experience, whatever kind of spiritual practice or religion? You know, I need some like guidelines. I need some system that I can give myself to cultivate that relationship or cultivate that experience, because that's really what I'm looking for. I don't care necessarily what religion it is or spiritual practice. I just want something real and tangible. I want to have like an intimate relationship with my creator. So I was having this conversation with my sister about, you know, authority and taking a, you know, look at like, you know, what is it, you know, how can we, you know, what is the process, I guess. So I was kind of thinking about my own process with this Krishna Consciousness, this Bhakti Yoga practice, because I started practicing about 5 years ago, experimenting. There's this is referred to as a scientific process, scientific method. So there's a process to it. There's it's that one can give themselves to and see the direct results of. So as I committed to that process and gave myself more and more to that process, I was seeing direct, tangible results through that experience. So that helped me gain more faith in the authority that this Krishna consciousness is really claiming. It's claiming to be given to us directly from God, which I don't know if everybody here knows everything about this Krishna consciousness, but according to this philosophy, the supreme personality of God's, his name is Krishna. And so we have the option, we can have an intimate relationship with Krishna. We have a relationship with Krishna whether we're conscious of it or not, according to the philosophy. Krishna is with us at every moment. It's are we aware of Krishna, and are we connecting to Krishna? And there's a process to that. So I kind of wanted to take a look at, like, this is what I was talking to my sister about, because she is a yoga instructor, so she has some experience with yoga and meditation. And so I thought it'd be fun if we explored a little bit together, like, you know, what was her education like, and like what was where was her practice really coming from? Like what you know, part of the world, what spiritual practice, what, you know, so she had basically expressed to me that, you know, it's like, as you trace it back, it comes from Vedic culture, the Vedas. Okay, so the Vedas, for instance, like we can see how the Vedas has an influence in the world today. I mean, there's our Vedic centers, you know, it's a very credible practice of medicine and health and overall well-being, the Ayurvedic medicine. And there's the other, I guess I don't want to get too much into like other, I guess, credible, like what people tend to view as authorities or they trust, and they're giving themselves to other practices. But I guess I wanted to go like directly to like the Vedas. Okay, where does the Vedas come from? Because this is the conversation that what I had with my sister, and it was really fun to kind of take a look at like, okay, so I do want to connect to the Bhagavad Gita at this point, because it kind of takes us into like Vedic sources. So we're going to go to Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, text 15 is where we're going. Hare Krishna. Damayanti is joining me in the room here. So, okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarni. So we're going to take a look at chapter 15, text, thought it was 15:15. 15, yes. Chapter 15, text 15. I don't know, I thought it was kind of interesting, the chapter 15, text 15. And I don't know, maybe Mother Malini, you could say a little bit about this, but I find that in the Bhagavad Gita, for some reason, when there's a chapter and the number and then the text, there's something special about when it's chapter 15, text 15, or chapter like other chapters I've seen, where there's something really, really significant about that particular verse. I don't know. Have you noticed that ever? Like,
No,
I don't know.
I will take a look next time. I will, after our class, maybe I will look to each chapter and see 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4.
Yeah. I've noticed really special things about those particular chapters for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's just me or something. So it could be. I'm going to read the word for word. Sarvasya.
Sarvasya.
Of all living beings.
Of all living beings.
Cha.
Cha.
And.
Aham. I.
Hridi.
Hridi.
In the heart.
In the heart.
Sannasya.
Sanivista.
Being situated.
Being situated.
Mata. From me.
From me.
Smriti.
Smriti.
Remembrance. Jnanam. Knowledge. Apahanam. Cha. And forgetfulness. Vadhi. By the Vedas. Cha. Also. Sarvai. All. Aham. I am. Eva. Certainly. Vadya. The knowable. Vedantakrit. The compiler of the Vedanta. Vedat. The knower of the Vedas. Eva. Certainly. Cha. And. Aham. I. Translation. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from Him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act accordingly to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets, and also about his past life. Thus, the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruitive results. He is not only worshipable as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to the people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activities, the giver of knowledge in the form of the Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of all of the Bhagavad Gita. He is the worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus, God is all good. God is all merciful. Anta pravastyat shatta jnanam, the living entity, forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him intelligence to renew his work where he ended his life. So not only does the living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand Vedas from him. If one is serious to understand the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yo soyat sarvar vadir jite. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performing Vedic rituals, discussing the Vedic philosophy, and worshiping the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. I want to read that again. By performing Vedic rituals, discussing the Vedic philosophy, and worshiping the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction to understand Krishna and the process of understanding. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra confirms this in the following words. Tat tu sammayat. One can attain perfection by understanding Vedic literature, and one can understand his real relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing the different processes. Thus one can approach him and at the end attain supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, however, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. Okay, so that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a big deal for me to kind of, I don't even remember like reading this verse before this past week when I was preparing for this class, because I was like having this conversation with my sister about like, the Vedas seem pretty credible. Like, it's it's well known, all around the world. And, it's like, what is the source of the Vedas? Where does it even come from? This particular verse clearly states, where the Vedas come from, directly from Krishna. And the whole purpose of the Vedas is to even understand Krishna and our relationship to him. So that's pretty significant. Hearing from the Bhagavad Gita, it's interesting too, because I started Googling, because I was like, well, I never really like Googled like, okay, this Vedas, where's the Vedas come from? It's kind of interesting. Like a lot of most of the information that I got was, it's like, part of Hinduism, and, they don't even know the author. And then some people are like, oh, these special sages wrote it. And then I did find a resource. It was after a while of searching that they did identify Vyasa. They didn't call him Vyasa Dev, they call him Vyasa. So it was kind of interesting, to kind of go through that process, because it's like I never really kind of researched like, where does the Vedas come from, as far as like what can I just Google and what can I get like as far as mainstream information. I was feeling a little bit kind of like I have more research to do. That's mainly what I was feeling, because I can clearly, learn about the Vedas through this Krishna consciousness, through the Srimad Bhagavatam and through the Bhagavad Gita. Right here, we have a clear definition of what the purpose of the Vedas is. And prior to this, preparing for this class, I was more kind of intrigued by, there's a personality, Vyasadeva. Okay, so according to this philosophy, a life in the material world is like, it goes through cycles. So it's like circular. It just keeps repeating itself over and over again. There's like 4 different ages, 4 different like segments of that it divides in. And as we came into the current age that we're in, the Kali Yuga age, it's the age of ignorance and quarreling, and it's an age where as a whole, like we're not as intelligent, and it just becomes more and more degraded. It's like, I don't know. I kind of look at it as more like kind of how like like the cycle of a plant, it grows and then it blooms, it flowers, and then it dies. I would relate this age to more of the dying age, that it's like everything's kind of withering and dying. And that's just my own kind of experience of the circular age thing. But so as we came into this particular age, prior to that, all the Vedas were spoken orally. They were sung. They were songs and that were passed down from generation to generation. And we had the capacity, or humans had the capacity to just hear it and memorize it. And, it wasn't really an issue. We didn't really need to write anything down. But as we came into this particular age, there's a pastime of this individual called Vyasadeva that is actually an incarnation of Krishna, that his pastime is compiling and writing it all down. So that was his kind of pastime, was writing compiling the Vedas. And I was curious about this individual. Okay, like, who is this individual? And, what do they have to say about the Vedas? Like, they're the one, this individual compiled it all. Like, I'm like, they have to have something to say about it. Well, after Vyasadeva compiled the Vedas, he was feeling satisfied in one sense, that like, okay, completed his task, but at the other sense, there's something missing for him. There's like something's not quite, like, something's not complete about this, or like individuals they'll be so lost. There's too much information here. It's like too big. It's like I don't know what I need. And then so he consulted his spiritual master. Garuda Muni is his name. And his spiritual masters, basically, he asked his spiritual master, what do I do? What do I do? I feel, like it's not quite right here. I don't feel finished, complete with this. And his spiritual masters, basically instructed him to give the essence of the Vedas, give the essence. And so he did. He created the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam, the main essence of the Vedas is to understand who Krishna is and our relationship to Krishna. And I'm sure it had to do with the processes of like, as well, of like uncovering that relationship that's already there. We have a relationship with Krishna. We've lost it. We've lost the understanding of how to have that relationship, or even the awareness that relationship is even there. So that's what this Krishna consciousness is like giving to us. It's giving us that knowledge, or that paradigm of like Krishna is where our source, or where we come from. We're part and parcels of Krishna, and we can have an intimate relationship with Krishna. And we've come into contact with material energy in this material world, and we've gotten distracted by it. So yeah, it was really great to find this verse and connect to it. And my sister and I are having ongoing kind of conversations about it, and it's really been enlivening to kind of go down this road with my sister through her experience with her chemo. She's felt that it's been like a transformation for herself, in that, like, one example she was giving me, it was really, I had to smile and laugh, because I grew up in the area where she's living, and it's very bodily focused, and a healthy bodily focused area at that. Like, people that are sick or that are odd or just not looking good, they're not seen. So my sister, like, she was getting so like frustrated with the pressure on her head. She lost all her hair, and there's like scraggles. It's not all gone, but the scraggles. And her head was so irritated that she just had enough. And she was just like, I'm going around without a covering. I'm just doing it because I can't stand it anymore. And she found it was so liberating, because there was individuals that wouldn't even make eye contact with her, or and like individuals that she used to, like, it was normal for her to, she's a very attractive woman. She'd go out into the world. Everybody wants to make eye contact with her and start a conversation. Whereas like now there's like, all this, like, people, because in that area, you don't go around unless you look like you're together, you just don't. It's just how it is, so. And anyway, so she was sharing that with me, and I was like, she was feeling like, wow, this is she's been going through a lot, obviously, but at the same time, she's like, this is an opportunity for me that I never had before, to have this experience that, like, people are looking at my body and not seeing like who I really am underneath the body. And we also had a conversation about her particular yoga group that she took instruction from and got educated with. They were very they were focused on connecting to a deeper part of the self. It wasn't just like the gymnastics of yoga and like the feeling healthier or being more fit. It was as well like making contact to like my inner voice, or like energy inside that like I haven't like connected with before. And I was like you know, excited to hear that. And she was actually expressing that she like hasn't really, like there isn't any more like with COVID, everything shut down. So and new places are starting back up again, but she's gone to a lot of different places and most of them are just bodily focused. So she's less like, she feels like she's at a place. Is getting like the sense of like, no, I want to do yoga to connect to more. So I'm really appreciating her process of going from like, you know, it's the health and well-being to like, oh, there's something deeper here that I'm accessing and I'm making contact with. And that kind of opened me up to have conversations about like, well, what is that thing? And can we even know what that thing is? Can we even know who we are underneath this, you know, body that we're occupying? Is that even possible? And that's one thing that I really appreciate about this particular philosophy is it goes into like a lot of detail of who we are, what are the qualities of the spirit, what is our relationship with our eternal relationship, what is our relationship with super soul, what is our, you know, what is our purpose in being here, what do we do with ourselves? So it's like I just really appreciating that, like it was a nice kind of introduction to kind of present, you know, kind of what I've been giving myself, endeavoring to give myself to this particular practice. Yeah, so I really had a special time connected with my sister this last time as well, because it was one of the first times that we actually spent more than like 15 minutes alone with each other. And that was very special. Like for the past like 10 years, we have kids and family. Whenever we get together, it's so busy and we might have 10 minutes to connect about something, but not like hours. So it was really special to spend that time with my sister, sharing about her life and hearing about her. And then as well, you know, she seemed really receptive and open. You know, her going through chemo and radiation really helped her like take a deeper look at like mortality, like, oh yeah, I might not make it through this. And what does that really mean to me? And I might only live 5 more years. I might get cancer again or whatever. You know, it's like, it helped her, you know, kind of take a deeper look at like these questions that a lot of people just stay busy and don't really, you know, take a look at. Like, what is the purpose of life? What happens after death? What is there? Is it even possible to find that out? What the real meaning of life really is? So I guess I want to pause there for a second. I want to kind of, I feel like I've got a little bit, maybe a little bit off track or something where I wanted to go. I don't know if it really matters or not, but I kind of want to look at my notes for a second. I think I don't know. I think if it's okay, I want to pause there because I feel like I've kind of said a lot and expressed a lot, and I kind of want to hear. I have a whole nother section that has to do with my mom and her experience. So that was kind of my sister and where I went with her with the Bhagavad Gita. And yeah, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything that's coming up for them that they want to share or express?
Vladini has something she wants to share.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Class, Garuda, Prabhu, thank you for sharing about your sister. It reminds me the class that Malini gave some time ago, and we titled it "Cancer: The Best Cure for Material Disease." So your sister got it, and she's really taking the best out of it, it sounds like. And then, yeah, it's interesting, like you asked us at the beginning about like to take a moment to think about like what authority do we obey. It's interesting that you ask it because that was my meditation today during japa. Like, and I was like in a completely same question. So it was just really interesting for me that you asked that.
Would you like to share a little bit about where you've gone with that?
Yeah, so I think I'm like really programmed to obey. Marina is laughing. So like it almost seems that like I cannot help it, like to have authority in my life that I obey. And it can be someone who takes advantage of it, you know, or ask me to do something crazy, like kill a chicken, or it can be Shah Prabhupada. So I thought, okay, let's just like really make sure that when I think I cannot get away from like obey, so that the authority is like worthy to be obeyed and I'm safe. That's where I went with it. Like, but yeah, I'm totally programmed to obey.
Yeah, you're expressing it in a way that you're, say that you're programmed. Is it like something in your nature that you want to serve? I'm just kind of curious, like where, like.
Well, I can speculate where it comes from, but I was like beaten as a little child, like even before I started to walk.
Wow, yeah.
So I think that made like the impression of like, let's obey to be safe.
Yeah. Mechanism that you kind of took on to, support yourself to be able to move forward with your life.
Yes, and I like, it's not that I necessarily always obeyed my parents, definitely not since teenage, but I would always have someone who like I put that to words to. And it wasn't a very happy thing always. But now it's almost kind of becoming an advantage.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
It's really interesting that today, like I went on Chapa walk and I was thinking that. And I just thought like, okay, whatever. I guess it's not going to go away in this lifetime and it doesn't matter. I guess I have the right authority.
It doesn't matter if, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. It doesn't matter if you obey authority.
My parents to condition me in this way.
Yeah. You can be Srila Prabhupada's dog.
Yeah.
Trained dog.
Very well trained.
Very well trained dog.
Yeah, so it's like, I think it's the first time in my life that I look at it like, that's great. Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, so you're seeing it as like a blessing at this point to follow a real authority? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so this following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, giving yourself to this Krishna consciousness, this you see as real authority.
Well, I am endeavoring to make my authority there, because it's like kind of like my subconscious like automatically seeks for authority, so I'm trying to navigate the subconscious to Shah Prabhupada because that's a good authority to obey. When I need to obey someone, I could be like, I'll get to, and it would be nice too. But
you could be rebellious too.
I could be also rebellious.
Yeah, you know that's a part of yourself that you may not ever overcome, but you're gonna direct it toward like giving it to an authority that deserves your service.
Yes.
Or that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. I can relate to, connecting to like the authority of this practice. And, it's, I was feeling for the most part, most of my life, like, how can I even trust authority? How can I even trust any authority? And, do I fully 100% trust this as authority? I could say that I trust it more than most authorities that I have been exposed to. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at. do I trust 100%? I don't know if I have trust issues. I have like, that's my challenges in my life of like, who can I trust? Can I trust anything? Yeah. Does anybody else like to share anything before I'm going to move on to my mother and experience with her?
I'm quite eager to hear that, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
comment.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so I went from my mom or my sister to my mother when I was down there, kind of back and forth, and you know, just kind of being with my mom has been really supportive for me to like, you know, I mean, I'm 45 years old and I'd like to think that I have a lot of time left, but I don't know how much time I have left in my body. And, you know, what am I doing with my life? I do know that like there's only one main thing that's certain is that I am going to leave my body. Death is coming. I don't know how much time there will be for me. And what am I doing with the time that I have? And am I being 100% committed to like, you know, take a deep look and explore and find out like, you know, what is my life going to be after this, after I leave my body? So I was thinking about my mom and her position, and you know, I mean, I love my mom very much, and you know, I'm indebted for her service and you know, bringing me closer to God in different ways that she did and still does. You know, I guess I was thinking about like, I know Mother Malini, you've expressed, I've known at least a handful of times during programs that, you know, this, you know, what we're experiencing right now is, it's really, you know, this practice is really the dying process, or the preparing for a death. And what is this philosophy presents this idea that everything that we're doing right now is co-creating our next body, whether it's a material body or a spiritual body. We can return, according to this philosophy, there's like the spiritual world, which is outside the material world, and then the material world itself. And we can choose what body that we have in our next life, whether we take on a spiritual body or we take on another material body. And so that's kind of, it seems kind of significant to kind of take a look at that. You know, is that really what life's all about? Is it really about co-creating what our next body will be? You know, just kind of being in that question. Like, oh, I don't know. I mean, this philosophy is telling me that, you know, or presenting this idea of that. Like, you know, again, it's like going through a process of like, do I trust this philosophy? Well, you know, I trust it more practicing for 5 years than I did previously. And, you know, and I think it's kind of cool to, you know, co-create like, well, what kind of body do I want next? Do I want to go? So according to this philosophy, it presents this idea that like, so in the material world, there's other types of planets that we could go to. There's heavenly planets and there's hellish planets. And this planet we're particularly on is referred to as kind of like a middle planet. It has aspects of heavenly planets and hellish planets. This philosophy also presents the idea that it's actually the best type of planet to particularly be on, because it has both aspects of hellish planets and heavenly planets. And what's so great about that is if we're in a complete hellish, you know, type of planet, the suffering that we'd be going through would be so intense that we wouldn't really, you know, be able to like think or feel anything other than the pain that we're going through, the suffering that we're going through. And then on the other verse end, the heavenly planets, they're so opulent and enjoyable that, again, we would be so lost in the experience of enjoying that it wouldn't really create any urgency for us to get out of the material context which we're in. So this Krishna consciousness gives us clear guidance if we want to co-create another material body, or if we want to leave the material world altogether and go back to the spiritual world. There's a process to that. And that's what I find like really exciting and interesting about this particular practice is like, it's like whatever we want. What do we want? It's like, what do I want? It's like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? But also the philosophy points out that, it can be, you can get lost in that, that journey of what do I want? Where do I want to go? Do I want to go to this heavenly planet? Do I want to enjoy this or that? It presents the ultimate goal of being in this life and being in the human context is to reestablish our eternal relationship with Krishna and return back to the spiritual world. That's the goal. Like, that's the whole purpose of this material world that we're in. So, it's like we could spend all our time going here or there, but, if that's just gonna kind of, be kind of futile in the end, it seems like, well, maybe giving myself to the ultimate goal and purpose of being in this material world is, to return back to the spiritual world. So this material context gives us the opportunity to do that, and this receiving this knowledge, this authority, this knowledge gives us the directions and process to do that. So now I'm going to go into, well, I did want to talk about the main material context, because this kind of came up for me. So there's 4 principles of material nature in this material context that we're in. It's birth, death, old age, and disease. So we can't avoid that. Wherever we go, whether we go to a heavenly planet, hellish planet, here or there in the material world, we're always going to be subjected to these 4 principles. And, birth can be kind of, intense, and, death can be intense, and old age and disease. It's, it seems like, not really that glorious of, experience that we could have over and over and over again if we want to in the future. So we could do that if we want. I'm going to go back to the Bhagavad Gita because I'm kind of getting a little bit, I don't know where I'm going. But anyway, so we're going to go to the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 14 is where we're going next. All right. I'm going to do word for word again. So chapter 14, text 14. Yada.
Yada.
When. Sattva.
Sattve.
Mode of goodness.
Mode of goodness.
Parvade.
Pravide.
In development.
In development.
To.
But.
Parlayam. Dissolution.
Dissolution.
Yati. goes.
goes.
Dihabrat,
Dehabrit,
embodied.
embodied.
Tata,
Tada,
at the time.
at that time.
Uttama, Vedam,
Uttama vidam,
of the great sages.
of the great sages.
Lokan,
Lokan,
the planets.
the planets.
Amlyan,
Amalan,
pure.
pure.
Pratiboyate,
Pratipadyate,
attains.
attains.
Translation: when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure higher planets. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One in goodness attains higher planetary systems, like Brahmaloka or Janaloka, and there enjoys godly happiness. The word Alman is significant. It means free from the modes of passion and ignorance. There are impurities in the material world, but the mode of goodness is the purest form of existence in the material world. There are different kinds of planets for different kinds of living entities. Those who die in the mode of goodness are elevated to planets where great sages and great devotees live. So that's text 14. And then I'm going to read text 15 after that. I'm going to do the word for word first. Rajasi,
Rajasi,
in passion.
in passion.
Pralalam,
Pralayam,
disillusion.
dissolution.
Gatya,
Yadva,
attaining.
attaining.
Karma sangyasyu,
Karma sangisu,
in the association of fruitic activities.
in the association of fruitive activities.
Jayate,
Jayate,
takes birth.
takes birth.
Tata,
Tata,
thereafter.
thereafter.
Pralahai,
Pralina,
being dissolved.
being dissolved.
Tasmi,
Tamasi,
in ignorance.
in ignorance.
Muda,
Muda,
animal.
animal.
Young use,
Yonishu,
species.
species.
Jayate,
Jayate,
take birth.
take birth.
Translation by His Divine Grace, or that's just the translation. So one dies in the mode of passion. He takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when he dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. The purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance, after his death, he is degraded to animal form of life. From there, he has to again elevate himself by evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness. In good association, transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that a human being will again attain the human status. So that's pretty significant. It's text 14, 15. It gives, clear information regarding being in the mode of goodness, leaving your body in that mode and leaving your body in the mode of passion and leaving your body in the mode of ignorance and what that co-creates, that consciousness. If we're in that consciousness at the time of death, what what new body it creates for us. So far, just, hearing this, it seems like, dying in the mode of goodness seems like, the best option here. But I guess as I was expressing earlier, it just brings us back to the material world. We're just at a, more enjoyable heavenly planet. We're still subjected to, the four principles of material nature, which is birth, death, old age, disease. So even though it might be, more enjoyable for a while there, then, we're still right back where we started, kind of in that, that material context. So I guess why am I kind of going here? I guess thinking about my mom and being with my mom, and like, I don't know, it's hard to say what capacity she has to understand really anything at this point of where she's at emotionally and mentally, and but she's really troubled, not knowing what's going to happen and where she's going and what's ahead for her when she leaves her body. I guess it seems like, if we didn't know where we're going after we leave our body, then it might be more peaceful. I don't know. It could be. But maybe not. But can we even know where we're going? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, okay, I'm endeavoring to, not return to the material world, but am I ready to go to the spiritual world? That's a whole nother thing. So I now want to go to how to leave, according to the Bhagavad Gita, how to return back to the spiritual world. We saw like what modes, if we are in the modes of goodness, we're in the modes of ignorance and passion, what those create at the time of death. So let's take a look at how do we get back to the spiritual world? So, which is the ultimate goal of being human in this material context. So, according to this philosophy, so I'm looking at chapter 2, and it is text 72. So that's where we're going now. So I'm going to start again reading the word for word, and then I'll go through the translation and purport. So chapter 2, text 72. Asya,
Esha,
this.
this.
Brahmi,
Brahmi,
spiritual.
spiritual.
Sitya,
Stiti,
situation.
situation.
Partha,
Partha,
Osanapartha.
Osanoprita.
Na,
Now,
never.
never.
Enam,
Enam,
this.
this.
Prapaya,
Prapya,
achieving.
achieving.
Vimhyati,
Vimuyati,
bewilders.
bewilders.
Sitvya,
Siddva,
being so situated.
being so situated.
Astyam,
Asyam,
being so.
being so.
Antakaral,
Antakare,
at the end of life.
for the end of life.
Api,
Api,
also.
also.
Brahma Nirvanam,
Brahma Nirvanam,
spiritual kingdom of God.
spiritual kingdom of God.
Richati,
Richati,
attains. Translation: that is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second, or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Katadgan Maharaj attained this state of life just a few minutes before his death by surrendering unto Krishna. Nirvana means ending the process of materialistic life. According to the Buddhist philosophy, there is only void after the completion of this material life. But Bhagavad Gita teaches differently. Actual life begins after the completion of this material life. For the gross materialist, it is sufficient to know that one has to end this materialistic way of life. But for persons who are spiritually advanced, there is another life after this materialistic life. Before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There is no difference between the kingdom of God and devotional service of the Lord, since both of them are on the absolute plane. To be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. In the material world, there are activities of sense gratification, whereas in the spiritual world, there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this life, is immediate attainment of Brahman. And one who is situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Brahman is just the opposite of the matter. Therefore, Brahmi Sittai means not on the platform of material activities. Devotional service of the Lord is accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as the liberated stage. Therefore, Brahmi Siddhi is liberation from the material bondage. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has summarized this second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as being the context for the whole text. In the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matters are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. In the second chapter, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga have been clearly discussed, and a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga has also been given as the context for the complete text. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so this particular verse is presenting a different option that if we leave our bodies at the time of death and we are in Krishna consciousness, that we will take on a spiritual body and go back to serving Krishna in the eternal, in the spiritual world. So that's what does this really mean, Krishna consciousness? Well, for me personally, it just means, simply put, like, we're conscious of our relationship with Krishna and we are actively engaged in that relationship. So that's what it means to me. And this verse is very, to me, it feels hopeful in that I can attain that experience of the spiritual world where I'm at right now. I don't need to wait till I leave my body. I can experience it, serving in devotional service and being in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, I guess that's what came up to me with my visit with my mom, as she's facing, leaving her body, and what does that really mean to her, and where's she going? And it helped me kind of take a deeper look at, like, how much of my time and energy am I putting into preparing myself for my next body, and how conscious am I of that? Like, what does that really mean to me? And where am I going, whether I'm conscious of it or not? Like, what am I choosing to co-create, you know, in an unconscious state? You know, it seems like, you know, if according to this philosophy, it seems like it's better to be conscious of where you're going and what you're co-creating than not, because, you know, so that's what I have for today's class. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, personal sharings? Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Garuda Prabhu. I truly feel stimulated by your class and all the philosophical import that you brought within the context of your relationship and visit with your sister and your mother. And, you know, like, I really appreciate how you're supporting your sister to look at something that's familiar with her. You know, she's a yoga instructor, so she knows the Veda. She knows the word yoga. Where does the word yoga come from? You know, everybody knows the yoga. Well, it must be coming from, I don't know, Okala, or, you know, I don't know, somewhere. Oh no, it comes from the Veda. Oh, and you know, like, in a sense, because, you know, she has some awareness, she already have connection. You know, she knows the word yoga, she's practicing yoga, then during the crisis, health crisis she's facing, with the help of her brother, she can go deeper, she can really explore, like, okay, what authority am I following? What are the Veda? What's the purpose? What's the process? What's the relationship with Krishna? And, you know, what is that thing that it doesn't matter if the air is combed properly or not, is not combed properly. What's my identity behind the hair and all that? So it was very stimulated, and your exploration of death. You asked, like, oh, you know what? And if we didn't know that there is something after death, maybe we'll be more peaceful. And Krishna gives that Arjuna that argument in the second chapter, earlier in the second chapter, because he said, okay, so let's say you believe in the soul. So if you believe in the soul, then nobody can be killed. But if you don't believe in the soul and you just end when the body ends, then what's the cause for lamentation? So he says that what's the cause for lamentation? And at the same time, most people who don't believe, they don't believe in life after life, they're in anxiety all the time. And it doesn't make sense. Why will they be? Because your point makes sense that if we didn't know, then we would be peaceful. But most people, they don't believe in life after life, and they're not peaceful. They are full of anxiety. So I was just wondering why.
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess the only thing I'm thinking about is, like, they're connecting to something deeper than, you know, that or at least maybe something deeper than their body, or maybe they don't want to lose their personal identity. They have an attachment of being something. I know that's true for me. Like, I'm not attracted to, like, you know, merging into the oneness and losing my identity. I'm not attracted to that philosophy. So for me, this particular philosophy connects to me personally because I want to keep my identity. You know, I don't want to, like, not like I'm attached to it. And I want to continue wherever that is in the next life. So I don't know. I appreciate that question, because that's, like, you know, why is it, you know, why is it that, you know, it's not so easy to just, you know, give up life so easily? You know, if an individual is faced with life or death, generally they'll fight for it unless they don't really have, like, much to live for, you know, You know what I mean? It's like somebody comes at them with a knife, they're going to defend themselves. They're not going to be like, okay, well, I'm okay with dying, you know, because maybe they have some attachment to living or themselves or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure you could also like, we're appreciating my sister's experience as well through your own personal experience of what you went through personally with, you know, treatments and whatnot. And yeah, I was thinking of you when I was with my sister in that context and just, you know, kind of seeing like, wow, you know, maybe Mother Malini's right. Maybe we all need cancer. And then, you know, that's how we, you know, liberate ourselves, you know, through disease, which is like, you know, I'm like feeling like how fortunate that we have these four, you know, principles in the material world. We have birth, we have death, we have old age and disease. Like what beautiful opportunities for us to take a look at, like, you know, something more than just enjoying being in existence. You know, it's like it's perfect. You know, I can see in my life how, you know, a close family member dying or a friend dying, how impactful that is for me to like take a deeper look at my life and, you know, where am I going? What am I doing in my life? You know, or disease, getting sick and being sick in bed for a week or two and, you know, just wondering, am I going to get out of this? And what does this really mean? Am I, you know, so there's so much opportunity there in the material context, you know, for us to, you know, take a deeper look if we, you know, choose to, I guess, if we choose to, you know, look at those things. Thanks for sharing. And would you like to say anything else? Do you feel complete?
I appreciate your point about individuality, that you don't want to lose your individuality, because we are eternally individuals. And so because we are eternally individuals, all those philosophies that there's nothing after death, that, you know, when the body and everything ends, it really is only an intellectual speculation, because at the core, we don't believe it. We don't believe it because we are all attached to our individuality, because we are eternally individual. And also we don't want to die because at the core, our nature is to be eternal. And it's about finding the way to not die. And about the cancer, it's really interesting what you say. If someone attacked us with a knife, because when I was going through chemo and radiation, it was hellish and my body wanted to die. Like, I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to drink, and I didn't want to move. Basically, my body obviously wanted to die. No eat, no move, no drink. And I pushed myself to do those things. I really pushed myself to drink, and, you know, with the help of, Eze and I pushed myself to drink and eat and all that. But the interesting thing is that simultaneously, almost, within the same period, I also wanted to die. And to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, why not just letting go, stop eating, stop drinking, stop moving, and let yourself die? So it's an interesting contradiction that we are living in. And even people who are suicidal, if you attack them, they are going to protect themselves and defend themselves. Even so, they may have decided that they will kill themselves, you know, the next day or another day later. Because our nature is so strong, because our constitutional position as eternal individuals is so strong, that this is what keeps us going, in a sense.
Yeah, whether conscious or unconsciously connecting to that, like, true nature of the self, and being eternal, and and wanting to be or being an individual, like those two qualities, like really kind of showing itself or coming alive, whether we're conscious or unconscious of it. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Oh, Damayanti. I might pull the cord out, but Damayanti would like to say something.
It's okay. I'll speak loudly.
You want to just come over here? You could say hi.
I just wanted to say that I was entertained by when you were acting out the like cool. It's cool, like that attitude of like, oh yeah, you know, this is kind of cool. I could co-create whatever I want. I could co-create whatever body I want. I could go to any place I want to after this body. I thought that was really funny because, like, you know, there's really no satisfying option for the soul except, you know, I mean, I think there's variety, but there's really no other satisfaction for the soul as far as I understand. What makes sense to me, that like we cultivate a service mentality towards God. And then we don't really know what form it will take, but at least we know the activity and like the consciousness. And I think that's the only satisfaction of the soul. But I liked how you're acting out, oh, cool, you know, maybe I want to cultivate a gorilla body, or maybe I would maybe I could co-create with God, you know, I don't know, like there's so many species and consciousness and locations you can go, and we have choices and whatever you want. And I just thought that was really funny, your whole attitude. When really it's like there's only one option, and even within that one option, sure, there's variety, but like there's only one option, I think, that satisfies the soul, truly satisfies the soul. But you're acting like you liked it, all the options.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you sharing and the entertaining way that I was expressing myself. I guess I was kind of connecting to, like, I found this online Facebook group. I didn't know it was a YouTube channel, and these individuals were like exploring like astral projecting and educating each other on how to do like rituals to go to other dimensions, and all their attitudes were very like, they were just excited to like help each other, like, you know, co-create these really wild experiences for themselves. You know, maybe connecting to more mystic yogic stuff, maybe through, you know, rituals and plant medicine, things like that. And it just seemed like that was the attitude, like they were explorers and they were creating. So I was just kind of connecting to that kind of consciousness. And it just, you know, we could get lost there, you know, I'm sure it would be enjoyable for some period of time, but, you know, if we're still subjected to birth, death, old age, and disease, it just seems like there's got to be an option that, you know, could take us somewhere else, which I'm more attracted to. I'm kind of, it's, you know, it's challenging to be in these bodies. Even a human body. I mean, being in a human body, we can do a lot more than a lot of other bodies can do. But still, it's like, it's, you know, it's challenging. So yes, would anybody else like to share or anything? Thanks again for joining us this Wednesday night Bhagavad Gita class. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you very much, Garuda Prabhu.
Thanks, Garuda. Hare
Fine.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Been
Hare
very
Krishna.
enriched. I feel enriched by your class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.